Oh, yeah. As much as I am the macho man, I am not the macho man, Lady Savage. And as much as I am a warrior, I am not the ultimate warrior. I'm Jason Sensation, and you're listening to another wrestling podcast.
It's time for another wrestling podcast.
Speak to me, warrior!
You know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here.
The measuring stick just changed around here, buddy. You're looking at
The best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be.
They think they got the answers. I change the question.
the cream of the crop.
Nobody does it better.
These are the best in the world, brother. These are the best at what they do.
When we talk about the legends of the sport, there's only two in my book.
Another wrestling podcast.
Another wrestling podcast. Now can you dig that, sucker?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another wrestling podcast. I'm Jonathan Benjamin.
And I'm Steve Credo.
Steve, this is episode number 63, another monumental day for another wrestling podcast. We are hot off the heels of July 4th and the New England Fan Fest 5. We've got a lot of videos out there. We got a lot of content from that day. Where can fans of the show or people just now tuning in find out about another wrestling podcast?
Well, that's funny you ask, Jonathan, because if you head on over to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com, you'll find all of our links to iTunes, to Stitcher, to TuneIn, to Player FM. We're everywhere, Jonathan, everywhere and anywhere. More importantly, even YouTube, Jonathan, because more than this show, we also have other kind of different interviews, interviews from this show, interviews that don't even happen on this show on our YouTube page, guys. So head on over to youtube.com/anotherwrestlingpod. Subscribe to us. Make sure you don't miss any of our shows. We have a brand new segment, Jonathan, the Indie Spotlight. This week, which we debuted with Super Cop. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Dick Justice.
That's right, buddy. Super Cop Dick Justice joined us for our inaugural Indie Spotlight. So check it out, guys. It's one of a kind. You won't hear Dick like this anywhere. So check it out. Head on over to YouTube. Like I said, anotherwrestlingpodcast.com. Subscribe to us, guys. Comment, like us, follow us, poke us, prod us, whatever. Pinatas. I don't know. It kind of went along with all that other stuff. But guys,
I think you had a little too much sauce on 4th of July, maybe.
That's
what's happening.
That's it, man. It's a whole new era. It's a whole new era in another wrestling podcast because we're heading on to year number 2, Jonathan. I can't wait. It's what kind of era are we in now for us? I don't know.
Well, I see what you're doing. You're dropping some hints here.
Hints, drop them.
We have none other than Jason Sensation joining us today on the show. It's going to be amazing. This gentleman was a huge part of the Attitude Era. Steve, I saw what you were doing. So I guess we're just going to get right into this. What are you talking about with these eras?
Well, Jonathan, I mean, everybody always talks about, what's the best era in wrestling? You know, was it the 80s, the 90s, the Attitude Era, the Reality Era, the 80s, the golden age of wrestling when it all started. There's so many eras in wrestling. It's like a chapter, it's like a series, it's like, its own little episode, or season 1 or season 2, but it's pro wrestling's own, time period, if you will. It's like a time capsule of this era. There's been so many, Jonathan. I mean, we haven't really talked about it at all. I mean, do you have a favorite? I have a favorite. I mean, we can get right into it and say which one's the best. On the count of 3, maybe, because I know we probably agree on this. On the count of 3, let's say your best wrestling era by the decade, okay?
Right. Yeah, sure.
1, 2, 3.
Bananas
80s.
and pajamas.
Well, that was kind of close. So you're saying the 80s is the best, right? Like me? Because the 80s was the best. It was the golden age, Jonathan.
No. There is absolutely no scientific proof to back up your claim that the 1980s '80s was the best. I mean, you mentioned it. We've got the golden age. We've got the new generation, the Attitude Era, the WCW ECW Alliance Invasion era, Ruthless Aggression era, the Universe era, and the Reality era. And you're picking the '80s. So
That's right. Yeah, that's where it all started, baby. That's where it all began. No, not technically all began, but where it all began.
I want you to name me 37 things about the '80s that make it better than any of the other eras.
24-inch pythons, Ultimate Warrior, face paint. Ooh, yes. Lots of snakes, some barbershop windows. Come on, man. The list goes on and on. I mean, come on. It was the best time to be a fan.
Listen, I do not. I don't agree with you, first of all, but second of all, I don't discount any of those things that you said. I grew up in the '80s. It's what made me a fan. But as I got older and I got to make my own decisions and all those sorts of situations arose, I could appreciate some of the things that happened in the other eras. So I'm not 100% with you, but I'm gonna delve into this. Is there one moment that you can think of as a child of the '80s that really, I guess, is your favorite moment from that era?
Favorite moment? I mean, there's. I'm gonna give you two because of the top two of my, adolescence.
First of all, hold on. I have to say two things. Number one, it can't be about Bret Hart, and number two, if I hear the story about you seeing Honky Tonk Man's butt again, we're gonna stop this whole entire podcast. So revise. If those were your two, then you have to start over.
Okay, so I have one now.
Okay.
Okay, the first biggest moment for me as a young little fan, a young little Mark, was Hulk Hogan slamming Andre the Giant. Never before seen on live television. It was unheard of. Nobody ever thought this could happen. It was just a body slam. It was. You look at that today, and yeah, it wasn't that big of a deal. But back then, that was like the biggest thing to happen in the world of professional wrestling. Andre the Giant was the biggest thing around, going undefeated, yada yada yada. Hulk Hogan comes around, he's the champion, but nobody thought he was going to be walking out to tell the tale of slamming the Giant. So, I mean, that right there definitely put, I think, pro wrestling on the map, besides what Hulk Hogan did. So, I mean, what better era was that, Jonathan? That was like probably the biggest moment ever to start off this boom of pro wrestling that we're in.
So, as a child in the '80s, you're watching this, you see these larger-than-life personalities, you start to kind of pick your side. Do you like the good guys? Do you like the bad guys? And you're watching this on a regular basis. At this point, in our young minds, our impressionable young minds, we knew that this was real. No one could tell us any different. Mm-hmm. And I don't like to throw around wrestling terms that often, but kayfabe was alive and well. So we believed what we saw on television. So we were subjugated to some of the what we thought at the time was the best wrestling. But this is my point. One of the gripes I have about the '80s is that very rarely were we getting, in the WWE, I should say, very good wrestling. We were getting amazing characters. We were getting some awesome matches every now and then, i.e. Macho Man versus Steamboat. But we weren't getting the quality of wrestling that we got in some of the other eras.
Sure. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, and I agree to a certain extent about that. But, granted, we've evolved as a human race through the years. We've evolved in pro wrestling, and yes, the matches have gotten better, a lot crazier, a lot more athletic than they did in the 80s, and of course I could definitely give you points and credit for that one. But I mean, this is the era of Hulkamania, Andre the Giant, Macho Man, Randy Savage, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, Ultimate Warrior, Rowdy Piper, and the birth of WrestleMania. Do I really need to go on?
Mr. T.
Well, of course. I mean, we can keep going on, but yeah. Granted, the matches weren't up to what par of they are today. But that was the beauty of it. I think back then is that I guess I don't know. I guess it being placed back in the '80s at my age right now. Would it still have the same effect on us? I don't know. Maybe because we'd never really seen anything else better than what it was then. So it's kind of hard to compare then versus now sometimes, because what's going to happen 10 years from now? Could there be something better happening than what we're seeing now? You know what I mean? So it's almost hard to time hop unless, it's hard to time hop, especially not knowing what you know now in a way, That's a lot of, I don't know, N's and O's and W's and wow, geez.
Yeah, that's obviously they say that hindsight's 20/20, but my money is still on. I mean, I have very fond memories growing up and watching wrestling, and Saturday mornings, Saturday nights, and as I start to get older and wrestling kind of evolved with our age group, I'll say it. It gave us the things that we needed at the time that we needed them. So. We spoke about the golden age of wrestling. That's something that you were really a big fan of. But then, 94 hits, 94 to 97, and we get the new generation. And this is really when my eyes were opened to what wrestling could be. You had your Bret Harts, whatever. Your Shawn Michaels. You had, Undertakers, Psycho Sids. You had... some great tag teams. You had some great big men. You had a great mixture. You had gimmicks. So that's when I started to become a little more picky about my wrestling, what I watched, what shows I went to, and those sorts of things, because the 80s really, it was a boom period, and if it wasn't for the 80s, the 90s wouldn't have even happened. But as far as the quality of the shows, the eras, the wrestling, it all, to me, just kept getting better. What did you think about the new generation era?
Sure. So, right after the 80s, going into the 90s, and now it's like I was saying, it's like, time hopping into another generation. Kids are older, people are, wiser. They've seen a lot more on TV than what they're seeing on, WWE right now. So, in my opinion, the early 90s period, right after, Hogan leaves, you get, Flair and Bret Hart as champion and all that, they're still trying to pump out these characters that probably would have been better 5 years ago, but not today. Like that time period just changed like that to where, we were getting the Doink the Clowns, the Duke the Dumpsters, Drosies, all these kind of characters. And it was, I don't know, it was like they were forcing these characters out there of anybody and everything. And it wasn't sticking, you know what I mean? The times were changing and people just wanted more. So I was still a fan. I still watched it, but I was hanging on for dear life in a way. You know what I mean? Like I was on life support during the early 90s to where, you almost... It was like I needed to be a fan. I wanted to be a fan. I still watched it, but it was starting to lose that, that glimmer of the Hulkamanias and, the Ultimate Warriors and all that kind of stuff. So it started to die out in the early 90s, and it was fading, man. It was fading fast. Do you agree? I mean, it was almost on life support, right?
I do not agree with you in any shape or fashion today. I don't know if you ate a big bowl of wrongies
the
this
early
morning.
90s. I'm not even talking about like the Attitude Era. This is before Hogan even turns. This is like early 90s. This is like Isaac Yankum's. Like it was starting to fade with me.
Okay, for every 10 terrible gimmicks that they had. They still had the show anchored with great
Bret
talent.
Hart, I know. Bret Hart anchored it, and
my God.
it was definitely Bret Hart carried that ball, and I agree with you, Jonathan. I mean, exactly what you said.
This is the worst thing that's ever happened to the show. I admitted it. All right, he was an integral part of the new generation, and then he started to slip. And so they brought in Shawn Michaels to pick up the slack. Oh, no, that's what happened. That's exactly what happened. And that happened until about 1997, towards the end of 97, where we get into what you mentioned earlier and what is widely recognized as the most important era in professional wrestling, depending on who you talk to, but typically males that were between that 18 to 25 demographic like we were in that era. The Attitude Era is widely renowned, and I think that that's when, as a wrestling fan that followed those eras, the Attitude Era was important because it was more real life situations. They struggled with certain things. You had Gold Dust, which you didn't really know he was a totally androgynous character. People didn't know if he was homosexual. They didn't know what to really make of him. So these were some of the issues that they were using back then to kind of captivate studio audiences. The O.J. Simpson thing that they did with Rowdy Piper. They did a whole thing with Brian Pillman when he had a gun. So these are all moments that stand out to me as I was growing up and becoming more, I guess, of an adult. Wrestling was also growing up. So
Yeah.
I understand that people love the Attitude Era. It's still not my favorite era.
No, yeah, and I'll tell you what, Jonathan, the Attitude Era, it had its good points, but it also had the low points of, like, you know, the whole Pillman incident with the gun and whatnot. I think they were on a very slippery slope of almost, you know, just throwing all of its, you know, buns in the oven, if you will. You know, they threw everything at the wall, see what stuck. And it was a hit or miss, man, because, you know, as much as they won the ratings war and the Monday Night Wars from all this stuff, you know, the WWE, but they could have also lost everybody, you know what I mean? To where the audience, if they weren't, you know, really digging this, they could have just tuned off, and then they could have, I don't know, they could have really ruined wrestling by changing it so drastically with all, you know, the whole Austin era. And granted, don't get me wrong, I watched it, I loved it. I was at that age where, you know, this was awesome. But at the same time, man, I feel like it could have ruined a lot of pro wrestling. And, you know, some say it did ruin some aspects of pro wrestling, to where, you know, you mentioned it, kayfabe, I think, died during the Attitude Era, to where that curtain was peeled open. We got to see a lot more of the backstage workings of what was happening. You know, it could have been a really big disaster, I think, if, you know, if certain things happened, and, you know, hey, what if the fans just tuned out and didn't really like this? And, you know, hey, I don't know. Do you think it was, I know it was a great time. It had a lot of ratings, but I don't know. It was really edgy stuff to where anything could have happened, you know?
Yeah, I think that what happened is they rolled the dice, and they gambled, and it paid off big time. So, but right now, joining us, Steve, in studio is none other than one of the gentlemen who was a big, huge part of the Attitude Era. If you don't know, you should go back on the network and look up when DX mocks the Nation of Domination, and you will see this guy front and center. He played Owen Hart, and ladies and gentlemen, it is an extreme honor to have Mr. Jason Sensation in AWP Studios today.
Today's guest is unlike any we've had on the show so far. He's been a wrestler, a manager, but you probably know him best from his spot-on impersonations. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jason Sensation.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor.
All right.
Jason, appreciation.
All right, Jason. Well, thanks for coming on the show, man. It's truly an honor to have you on the show. How are you doing these days? You doing all right?
I'm hanging in there, yes. No, I don't want to complain, but, you know, doing my best. We call it a struggle out there sometimes. And I'm just fighting through the motions. But I just had nose surgery from when I broke my nose back in WWE 16 years ago. And finally, Ontario Health has been able to allow this nose surgery to go through, and healthcare paid for it through Ontario's healthcare. So I'm really blessed and grateful I can finally breathe normally again.
Great.
Now, Jason, we obviously know you've been heavily involved in the world of professional wrestling, but what have you been up to these days?
I'll tell you the truth, I'm kind of at the crossroads, you know. I'm trying to figure out my life and on to the next steps. You know, I worked as a security guard for many years, but in the entertainment world, I think that I don't know if I'm finished yet. You know, I still got that niche when you've been on television and you get that taste of 15 minutes of fame. There's always a hope to do it again or do it more, and I don't think I'm done yet. You know, and luckily Mick Foley came in and found me a few years back because he promised he would 15 years before, and he put me on some of his comedy shows, and I really enjoyed it. And he wrote everything that I did, and playing the part that he wanted me to play and the few impressions that he got me to play was a real blast. And I just feel like maybe there's a future for me in comedy.
Nice. Now, you're native Canadian, so we're assuming that you've been a fan of wrestling since a very young age. Do you remember the first time that you've watched pro wrestling, or maybe the time that you really got hooked into it?
Yeah, I think it was the most I remember. I guess it was the Hulk Hogan era and the Rock and Wrestling era. But I think my mom, God rest her soul, used to tell me that my dad would even sit with me and watch wrestling with me in his lap when I was an infant. So maybe I was even watching before I can remember. But I think what really got me into it was that Rock and Wrestling era. And my mom used to rent a lot of the Coliseum home videos so I could catch up on the history.
That's awesome. Now, did you ever think as a child that you wanted to pursue a career in the wrestling industry?
Yeah, I had a little bit of a tough childhood, and I had to escape from it. And you hear this story a lot with people that are wrestling fans and people that are in the wrestling industry. But I kind of hid in the world of wrestling. I hid in the love. I found a love for the world of wrestling, and I could, always find a way to solve all my problems just turning on weekend wrestling show or Saturday night's main event. I could hide in that wrestling, and really it lifted me up. It gave me something to look forward to, and I was lost in the world of it. But at a very young age, when I started to do my Macho Man impression and different impersonations, and my parents and my brothers and sisters would get me to do it on display for other people, and me and my little brother Johnny Bloodclot, we'd act out wrestling matches with each other and do the promos. I guess then I started to hope that maybe there was a future for me, and I think my dream began at a young age to be the next Mean Gene Okerlund. That's what I really wanted to do.
Nice. Now, as we mentioned, you said you gained a lot of attention with your impressions. Have you always had this gift, or is it something that you practiced with?
Yeah, I think. Again, at a very young age, my mom was watching I don't know what show it was on, but Andre Philippe Gagnon he's an impersonator. He was doing all of the voices for We Are the World. He was singing the entire song with all the different singers' voices. And I was watching in awe, and I couldn't even believe it. I asked my mother, "How is this guy doing this?" And she said, "Well, that's just a gift. We all have our gift, And maybe it got into my mind then that I could do this and this could be my gift, but it turned out that it was my gift. As I started to try different voices, they would come out dead on. So again, at a very young age and acting out the wrestlers, I think, a little bit of both, but I think it's my gift.
All right.
Now, you just mentioned one gentleman, but are you a fan of any other comedians or impressionists?
Oh yeah, I'm a huge fan of Andy Kaufman. Mm-hmm. He's one of my favorites, and I idolize him. He always makes me laugh. I can rewatch his comedy or his stand-up over and over and over again, and I always get a kick out of the way he just loved to get reactions out of people. And I guess in my teen years I liked Dennis Leary, and I always was a huge fan of Jim Carrey since he came out on the scene, and his impressions are dead on. We actually grew up in the same area and went to some of the same schools, so I feel like in some ways, and I followed in his footsteps, even if it was just for a short while.
Sure. Now it may be a little known fact that we want to bring to light, but you are a trained pro wrestler. When did that come about?
After I got the opportunity from World Wrestling Entertainment, they'd had me on air already. Even before I signed the contract, I was on air impersonating Owen Hart, and I was really blessed. Everything was at the right time, and I was really blessed to
be in the spot I was in and come out with D-Generation X and get to impersonate the greatest of all time, Owen Hart. And lo and behold, coming from Canada to the States for Raw every week, the U.S. border began to ask questions about why Titan Sports was paying for my flights and things of that nature. I reached a point where I needed a green card, and I was begging for it and I was pleading for it, but things were so busy at the time and everything was just falling into place. So I think everyone just thought everything would continue to go that way. And when I came out and was introduced on Raw, sitting with good old JR and Jerry the King Lawler and Heartbreaking Shawn Michaels, then the very next week when I was supposed to go be on Raw to actually turn Shamrock heel, immigration came out from the office and said, "We know who you are. We saw you on wrestling last week. Where's your green card?" And I didn't have the green card, and so they said, "Sorry, kid, you're going to have to wait." And that basically, when my career got put on hold. I don't think I ever again achieved the opportunity to steal the show like I did in the first place. But in that time, WWE still wanted to utilize me. And that's when they signed me to a 3-year contract. And basically I was, they told me I was in the bank. I was to stay at home and wait for the call. So while I was at home waiting for the call week after week, once the green card had come in, I decided, why not train myself? Why not, prepare myself and be the best employee I could be, even just to take the bumps if I'm going to be a talent, show talent or a personality or even a manager, just to learn the bumps, just to learn what I'm going, all the aspects of where I'm going to be working. So
sure.
I was connected with Ron Hutchison, pro wrestling trainer, well-known pro wrestling trainer, former WWE superstar Ron Hutchison, the Wonder Boy, Ron Hutchison. And within 6 months, he had me trained, and he's an amazing trainer. And him, along with Rod Boudreaux and Fuego from Toronto, they all trained me to be a wrestler. And within 6 months, I was, on the indie circuit, and I had started wrestling. It was basically just to, be a better employee. But I ended up doing it for years after I was with WWE.
Well, there's also maybe a little known fact that you had something to do with helping train WWE Hall of Famer Trish Stratus. Can you talk to us about that a little bit?
Oh, that's true. Yes. She came into the school, the same school with Ron Hutchison. She arrived about 6 months after I did. So I was all trained and ready to go. And we had a lot of big guys in our class. She was the only girl at the time. And I had a lot of big dudes, and they looked at the size of everybody and thought, "Wow, Jason, you kind of match up with Trish perfectly." So due to my size, smaller than all the other guys, it paid off for some reason, because I got to work with Trish one-on-one all the time, and that was great. She's such a professional.
Awesome.
A beautiful, gorgeous woman, but such a professional and a really good friend. And I had a real honor working with her, and Ron put together an amazing few style of matches we could work together, and some moves that I did in that match with her I'd never even seen on TV again. And we had our first match booked and ready. We had WWE Canada, the Canadian president, Carl DeMarco, who did a lot to help me get in the first place. But he came down and watched the match, and we basically had the match all ready to go for WWE if an angle was to be used between the two of us. But her career skyrocketed when she got on, and we never got that opportunity. But it was such an honor and pleasure to work with her. And yep, her first match was with me, even though it was not seen by anybody here.
Nice. Well, you also spent a lot of time with the likes of Brian Kendrick and Daniel Bryan. What are your opinions on these two superstars?
Oh, I love those guys. I love them both. Brian Kendrick and I have kept in touch, and he's a really good friend. There was a time period where I thought I'd lost his friendship, but sometimes people, with the business especially, you can lose touch. And I've had a lot of issues mentally, and I reached a point where I was afraid that, maybe I'd lost him as a friend. But he's such a good guy, and he was able to track me down and find me again. And we were like best friends. I mean, we both cried when I got let go, and we couldn't go on the road anymore together, because not only was I their manager in the independence in the wrestling, the WWE farm team in Memphis, but I was also living with them, and our good buddy Shooter Schultz, and who's also trained by Shawn Michaels, and Lance Cade, God rest his soul, wonderful guy that I miss and love. And I love all those four. And Shawn, really, these guys were like so young, between 19, 21, and 25. I mean, these guys were ready to go then. They were already some of the best wrestlers in the world. And Daniel Bryan, to see where he's gone, I'm so proud of him. Such a good guy. From what I read and what I see, he's still the same guy that I knew when he was 19. And he was a great, wonderful person who just had a heart of gold. And same with Brian. And Shooter Schultz, who keeps in touch with me every now and then. These are really wonderful, good-hearted, good people. And Shawn Michaels trained them to be some of the best wrestlers in the world. And I just wish that, the industry mainstream got to see some of the matches between Brian Kendrick and Daniel Bryan, because they still stand as my most favorite matches that I've ever watched in my life. And I remember reading the top 10 of Daniel Bryan's top 10 matches, and I was just flabbergasted. I couldn't believe that he didn't include Brian Kendrick in the top 10, because 3 or 4 of their matches make up most of my top 10. I mean, to watch these two work against each other is just beyond compare. These guys, I feel, are the best wrestlers in the world. And I still think to this day right now that Brian Kendrick and Daniel Bryan are the best wrestlers in the world.
Do you still watch wrestling today?
I try to. I don't have cable, and I don't have the network yet. In Canada, where I'm at, through Rogers, you have to order cable to order the network. I just don't want to be preoccupied with cable. I have this thing against it. So, but I would like to eventually get myself the network, and I do keep in touch with what's going on. I don't know. Sometimes I find myself reading the news and saying, I can't believe I'm still here doing this, 37, and I'm still reading the news to find out what happened on Raw. But it's in the blood, as Chris Benoit once told me. Once it's in your blood, Jason, you can't get it out. And it's true. It's just I still love the business, and I still love the industry, and it's just, for sure, I'm always keeping up with it. And I haven't lost that dream, even though so many have told me, just let it go, Jason, let it go. I just still see myself the greatest buzz in the world is walking down that aisle and standing in the ring in the middle of that audience. The energy, you've heard it from all of them, but the energy and the rush you get from that, it's uncomparable on earth with anything. So
sure. I
still have that dream of walking down that aisle again and feeling that buzz in the middle of the ring somehow in a WWE atmosphere, but who knows if that'll ever happen. But even if not, I'm blessed that I got the opportunity.
Well, maybe we'll have to start a campaign, Jonathan, to get Jason Sensation back in the ring.
Absolutely.
Maybe.
I did challenge Vince McMahon to a match, but he hasn't answered yet.
One day. Well, I think you may be most known for your D-Generation X parody of the Nation of Domination. Can you walk us through how this happened and how maybe you were called to do this?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I guess, in a nutshell, I had met Owen Hart and Davey Boy Smith at a meet and greet. It was my first time meeting wrestlers, and I did impressions for them, just going crazy, so happy to meet them. And Owen loved the impressions so much that he brought me backstage. And while I was backstage, I met Carl DeMarco, who was the Canadian president. He ended up bringing me on some Canadian talk shows and Canadian shopping channel shows. And one of the times that I was on those was Triple H and China were there. And Triple H took a major liking to me and had me come out with him a couple of times on those shows. And then when Vince McMahon came to Toronto to do Off the Record after Bret Hart got screwed, and Vince McMahon, Carl DeMarco introduced me to Vince McMahon at TSN, and Vince he loved the impressions right away. He just, unbelievable. We got to get this kid on there. So after meeting Vince, it was a set deal that I was going to be on, and they were trying to figure out where they could fit me. And it was just around the time DX was feuding with the Nation, and I think Triple H had a lot to do to help me, but honestly, I don't think I would have had the job if it wasn't the Attitude Era and if Vince Russo wasn't writing. I mean, the Attitude Era changed everything, and it made them open their eyes, I think, to things that they might not have tried before. And Vince Russo was a big fan of mine. He was all over pushing towards me coming in. I remember him calling before I even got the opportunity, after we'd heard from Triple H and Carl and Vince McMahon about me. Vince Russo calling me at my house and just, give me the rundown. I want to hear all of them. Give me every single voice. And I went through like 50 or 60 impressions with him, and he was popping in all the way through. He loved it. And I really think I was blessed to have him writing at the time. Everything was just falling into place at a perfect time. And of course, with the first introduction to the WWE, the first open door from Owen Hart, and bringing me in the dressing room to rib the other guys, look at this guy who can do the voices and kind of rib everybody. It was a major rib on Owen Hart that I could do Owen Hart's voice, because he had ribbed everyone so much and everyone loved him so much. I think they wanted the biggest part of me getting the job also was them wanting to put me on air doing Owen Hart, because they thought it was just so amazing that someone could do this. This very, it's just not a voice that most people would impersonate, And so to find that someone could do a dead-on impersonation of this distinctive voice of the amazing person that everyone loved so much, they wanted to rib Owen so bad that I think that also helped me get the job. And it turned out to be a rib on Owen, and I was dressed up like him and doing his impression. But he loved it. He was a big fan, and he was a great guy. And so I think it was a lot of stars aligning, a lot of things coming together, and a lot of people in high positions giving me an opportunity and helping me realize my dream and destiny.
Now, you just mentioned Owen, and there's been a lot of people that you have impersonated. How did the wrestlers react to your portrayal? Were they happy about it? Did some of them not like it?
I think initially everyone loved it. Everyone, I saw Triple H years later when I was doing security. I was a security guard for him, and he ended up telling my boss right in front of me, why we hired this guy is just to laugh. He made us all laugh, so we just hired him to laugh. That's how it was for a little bit backstage. A lot of guys would just pull me aside, or they'd group around me and just get me to throw out voices, or they have me ribbing each other. It was a lot of fun at first. But I think once I was on air and I got that spot on Raw and I did Owen Hart, a lot of guys really congratulated me. Like The Rock and Stone Cold were very supportive, and Owen was so supportive. Everyone in DX, they shared that spotlight with me, and Nation of Domination as well. Every single one of the members, they all shared that spotlight with me and tried to help me get over. But as time went on, to find me a spot, my spot became on the road host of the show. And so I would be coming out hosting live events. And at the beginning of the events, my thing would be to give the rundown of the matches they'd be seeing later tonight. And I'd be doing impressions of everybody on the card. And I think it reached a point to where a lot of the guys were going back and saying, hey, what's the point of us going out and doing our promo when he gets to take all the heat from it in the beginning all by himself? This one guy does all of our promos. He gets all the heat. He gets all the fanfare. And then we're coming out and it's like a rerun of what this impersonator already did at the beginning. And I think it kind of worked against me, So, a little bit of both, everyone was supportive. And then as time went on, reality struck and everybody's spots is, very important to them and they need to protect it.
Sure. And now, like we said, you had to impersonate the late great Owen Hart. Was Owen as great as everyone always says? And is there any maybe story maybe that happened with you with him backstage that maybe nobody knows about, or anything you could tell us about Owen?
Yeah, Owen was a wonderful, wonderful human being. Like everything you hear about him is true. There's just, I don't know if I do know that I've never known a better man in my life. He's the most wonderful person I've ever known in my life. And I'm good friends with his niece, Lindsay. I mean, just this guy one day showed up and bought his sister a house. He did everything for his family. Everything he was always doing was for his family, and to get home and be with his wife and kids. That's all so true about him. But he would make everybody's day better. He would lighten up everybody. He was just like a shining light. His wife called him a lighthouse after he passed away, and that's exactly what he was. He was like a lighthouse to everybody, and just the most amazing person I've ever known. And to share a funny story, I had the green card, and I was at home, and I'd been trained to wrestle now, and I'm just waiting and hoping for a call that I'm not getting. So I decided to I saw them coming to Connecticut, and I knew everyone's going to be at this Raw because they're in Connecticut. So I decided to take a bus down to Connecticut just so I could talk to everybody and see how I would get myself back into the fold. And I took a bus down to Connecticut, and just arriving to, to the building, I'm walking towards the building, and Owen Hart drives up in a rented vehicle, and he's like, "They did it! They did it! They listened to me. I can't believe it. You're here for me. You're here for me, for the angle." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about." He's like, "Get in the car." And he basically took me for a drive around the block. We drove around the block 4 or 5 times as he explained this angle to me. And I said, "I'm sorry, Owen, I had nothing. I don't know anything about this." And he said, "Okay, well, this is destiny. What are you doing here?" I said, "I just took a bus down so maybe I could talk to Vince and see if I could find my way back on. I think out of sight, out of mind, and everybody's forgetting about me, and I'm nervous. I don't want to lose this." And Owen says, I've been trying to get out of the angle with Deborah as my manager. So I came up with this idea to have you as my manager. And I'm the heel, and you're a face, but I'm a bully heel, and I'm bullying you all the time. I'm getting you to do impressions of all the guys I'm working against, and I bully you into making fun of some of the faces, even though you're face. And it's this great idea where it's a heel and a face working together, like a bully situation. And I was just laughing with this idea. I thought it was amazing. And he drove me around the block a few times and says, I've left it up to Vince Russo, and it's up to them. So basically, I went in to talk to Vince Russo about it. And now I had a reason even to go in more than I did before I took the bus. And but Vince Russo, in his, like with all respect and power to him, because he was writing for everybody all the time. The guy was running around like a chicken with his head cut off every single day. But I caught him. I was able to stop him for a little bit and ask him about this angle, and he's like, "No, I've got to turn it down, and the reason is because Owen's got Jeff, Owen's got Deborah, Owen's got Blue Blazer, Owen's got Coco," because I guess Coco was playing Blue Blazer as well at the time. And he's like, "He's turning into his own faction here. It's like bigger than the NWO. Who else is going to join Owen? We're going to have to save you for something else right now. We're going to have to leave that idea behind." So as much as I loved the idea, I really wish, especially in hindsight, I really wished I could have played that part with Owen. But he was always looking out for me, and he loved my impressions, and he was always trying to help each and every person. And that's another way he was just, as much as helping himself to get out of an angle he didn't want to be in, he wanted to help me get back into the fold and get, do an angle with him. So he's just an amazing person, always helping out each and every person. And I miss him, and I feel for his family. I know that he was the glue that kept everyone together. And I'm good friends with Bret Hart, and I know Bret really misses him every day. I'm best friends with Lindsay as well as me. And it's just, I know everyone in his family, they still don't, not a moment goes by that he's not on their mind. And, even if he's ribbing them or hiding their keys on them or playing jokes still.
Sure. I mean, that's a great story. I mean, I'm glad you got to tell it, and a lot of people will be able to hear it. And I know Jonathan's probably shaking his head because you mentioned Bret Hart, because Bret Hart, I talk about on every show. He is my favorite wrestler of all time. And he knows I'm probably going to ask you at the end of the show, hey, Jason, tell Bret if he wants to come on. We're always here, right, Jonathan?
Yeah, I hear more about Bret Hart than anybody, probably even more than his wife or kids. So, now,
that's amazing. No, absolutely. I'll let you guys know next time I'm around him. Every time he comes down, we try to go out, and our good buddy Bert the Hurt takes us out for steaks, and we got Click with my buddy Flesh, and we always go out and just
awesome.
Have good times, tell great stories. And Brett's a really, really good friend. If I ever need advice or if I ever need a shoulder to cry on, even he's there, I can call upon him, and he's always there for me. He's I see him as a brother. He's really always there for me, and I'm blessed. I'm blessed to know him and have him as a friend. This guy, I'm even into his documentary. If I try watching it now, that Wrestling with Shadows, I bawl my eyes out. Just so sad now.
Yeah.
So many of them passed away, and in hindsight of what could have been, it's just so hard to watch. But I'm even there cheering on Bret with megaphone in one quick scene from that movie, and in what I say from that movie, it turns out to be true, that I'm always his supporter, and I'm always by his side. It's just funny, so many years later, that we go out and hang out and share memories and good times together now like brothers. He's a really great guy.
Well, like I said, I know you said that you keep up with things, but there's a rumor that's pretty much been confirmed that Owen Hart will be getting a DVD treatment from WWE soon, which is great news. But do you think that this could lead to his long overdue induction into the WWE Hall of Fame?
Oh wow, I hope so. He definitely belongs in that. It's a touchy subject for his family. My heart goes out to them because I know how hard it is for them. And, I don't know how hard it is for them. Nobody does. Nobody knows how hard it is for his wife and his kids. So, it's touchy because my heart's torn. Hearing the stories of that they don't want anything shown and they don't want his memory remembered. But I'm on their side because that's Owen Hart's immediate family. That's who, he spent his life with. That's who he left behind. And my heart goes out to them. And there's no way I could, dispute or defy anything they say or their wishes. But on the other hand, I'm close friends with his family members who, they really want him remembered. And, they don't want to take that away from so many wrestling fans that loved him and shared so many of his days and memories. And there's so many people that, even friends of mine, that became Owen Hart fans after the fact, and they don't want to lose that opportunity to be able to cheer on Owen into the Hall of Fame, or see things that maybe other people didn't get to see, or hear things that other people didn't get to hear. And, I'm torn on it for people because my heart goes out to everybody involved. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But on my personal take, I would love to see him inducted in the Hall of Fame, and I would love to see his, memory shared with this new WWE universe, so they could see, so it could, and they could just spread the word of what a wonderful, beautiful man he was, and so everybody could more get to know who and what Owen Hart was about.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, Jason, with the WWE still as big as ever and constantly growing and expanding now with NXT and the network, have you ever been contacted to do anything or with any of their shows? If not, would you be open to do anything today, or is there anything in your mind that you would love to be a part of?
Oh, absolutely. No, I haven't been contacted by them. It's, for years I worked my butt off on the Indies trying to get back for about 4 or 5 years after. Put together a great group with the AWS, and we traveled around Ontario, with this Apocalypse Now group. And, I just, my dream, I didn't let it die. And I felt like I never really got that opportunity to go back and finish what I had started. So, but as years went forward, I think that I wonder if I burned some bridges because, as I hit some depressing years and started to have battles with mental illnesses, I looked for therapy online, started to go online and burst out a lot of my anger and allow myself to just spit out bad things that had happened, that I went through and let happen and kept going and worked through things that in hopes to keep my dream alive. And when the dream ended, it was like, well, I've been through all this hard shit and it's for nothing. And, I think after a few years of trying to get back and being ignored, I think I kind of went off the deep end. There was a lot of personal problems that went on at the same time as well. But, in hindsight and looking back now and as I've grown and matured, I feel that bad shit can happen anywhere you are in life, in any job, wherever you go, whatever you do. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there's going to be bad things happening, there's going to be good things happening. It's just the way life is. It goes hand in hand sometimes in life, the good and the bad. So you can't point the finger at the company always, or can't point the finger at, I don't know. But,
Sure.
yeah. But at the same time, I feel that going online and letting all your anger out online is a big no-no.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no way to go back and erase some of that stuff. You can still find it online. And once you've said stuff online, you can't really take it back. So I don't know if I did burn bridges, but I wonder if I did. And if I did, then I guess the word I could spread to anyone who lives that dream and wants to pursue it and continue it is to keep whatever negatives to yourself and don't air out any dirty laundry, because it'll only work against you, and there'll be no way to take it back. But if there was an opportunity, I'd definitely love to be like a WWE Network Canadian guy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
For maybe the Canadian side of the network, like whatever Todd Pettengill used to do, present the shows and things along that nature. I think I would have a lot of fun doing that. And as well, seeing WWE working with Warner Brothers and making cartoons such as the Scooby-Doo movie, I think I would be like perfect for something like that. I mean, they could, instead of paying all the wrestlers to come in and do voiceover work, they could just let one guy take care of it all.
Yeah.
I think I even do a better Scooby-Doo than Scooby-Doo. So,
Well,
that'd definitely be something I'd be happy to be a part of.
Well, I think Steve hit it on the head earlier. We're gonna start a get Sensation back in the WWE campaign.
That's awesome, guys. I appreciate that. If there's anything I can ever do for you guys, you let me know. Impression-wise, especially.
Sure.
Absolutely. Well, who are some of your favorite wrestlers to mimic?
I love doing Stone Cold because it's so easy to do Stone Cold. It's just like there's always something to say, and Mick Foley gets me to be Stone Cold to end off his shows a lot when we're doing the comedy act. When I'm doing his comedy act with him, when he invites me on his stage and lets me share his spotlight, and just have so much fun. It goes over so well. He's one of my favorite guys to impersonate, as well as Bret Hart, just because I love the guy, and I always have. And Ric Flair, that's Bret Hart's favorite impression. Anytime I want to crack Bret up, all I got to do is my Ric Flair impression. He can't help himself from laughing.
Well, we got something coming up soon that maybe we can hear some of them. But before that, are there any other wrestlers, other than wrestlers, do you have any favorite people that you like to impersonate?
Oh yeah, I love some of the Hollywood actors. Joe Pesci, Robert De Niro, Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Marge and Homer Simpson. These are a few of my favorites I like to utilize when I'm doing impressions.
Well, we've been skirting around this all night, and we want to get some of these famous impersonations from you. If you would be so kind, we have what we like to call a lightning round, but tonight we're going to do things a little differently. Instead of asking you rapid fire questions, it's kind of like a roulette wheel of impersonations here. So if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to throw out a name, then Steve's going to throw out a name, and if you have any, maybe you don't do impersonations of these people, but then we'll know. But the first one, you kind of did it already, but I'd like to hear some HBK if we could.
I'm a heartbreak kid, Shawn Michaels, and I like to kill animals. Because just like my good buddy Triple H, I am a hunter.
All right. How about have you tried doing Andy Kaufman?
Oh, that's a great one. I'd love to try Andy. Okay, let's try his regular voice, and then I'll go into vodka. Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Kaufman, and I'm so happy to be here tonight. Thank you very much for having me. And here's my friend, Latka.
Hello, I am Latka. Thank you very much. Now I do imitation of Tony Clifton. Thank you very much. Hello, it's Tony Clifton. I am not Andy Kaufman. Andy Kaufman's not me. Thank you very much. Twist my noodle, toodle poodle.
That's awesome. How about you mentioned him? How about the Nature Boy?
Woo! Bret Hart, you want to be on my podcast? Come on! Come down and be on my podcast because the Nature Boy and the Hitman, we are a new tag team. A legend tag team. Woo! Can't steal it. Wheeling dealing, limousine ride. Well, Brett's not in a limousine, but I am. Woo! Get flying! Son of a gun! Me and Bret Hart, we're the Ice Bucket Tag Team Champions! Woo!
All right. Have you tried doing Chris Jericho?
Oh, he's a great guy, too. I got together with him a few months back in Toronto. He's a really good guy. Let's try some Jericho.
Welcome to Y2J Isn't on Twitter because somebody hacked into my account and made me say some pretty awful damn things that I would never have said. I apologize, Triple H and Stephanie, for those awful things that were said on my Twitter account because I would never, ever say those things again.
Wow, I'm having a blast over this. These are great.
Yeah, it feels like we're interviewing about 100 people right now, so this is amazing.
Jonathan, I'm thinking right now, before you even give him any more, I'm thinking if we can't get anybody famous, maybe we can just call Jason and we'll just do the whole show. Him doing the impersonation, and we'll just see if people can
we'll just
realize that it's
just
not
can't
really
fade it.
Yeah, that's it.
Just kayfabe it, and if you get any phone calls, ignore them.
Absolutely.
I used to do some shows with Bret Hart, but now Bret Hart says, "We never did those shows. That was you, Jason. You did it all. You were doing my voice and everyone else's, and you know I don't claim to be on any of those shows. That was all you. You rotten, stinking hyena."
Well, you mentioned Bret. You've talked about Owen a lot, and I think that's the one that I'm really wanting to hear is some Owen Hart, if you could.
All right. The fact of the matter is, Jason, you are really just a nugget. Without me, you are nothing, Jason. Look at you and that broken nose that you needed surgery on. All those times you made fun of my nose. You made fun of smelling the coffee all the way in Brazil. Look at you now with your surgically repaired nose. I hope you can smell the coffee in Brazil now. You look just like an aardvark. Woo!
Wow. Well, just a few more, and then I think our night will probably be made, Jonathan. You mentioned him briefly before. You said you could do a better Scooby-Doo than Scooby-Doo himself. Could we hear the Scooby-Doo?
Yeah, sure. That's a great one. Let's try it. I've never done Scooby-Doo before publicly. Let's give it a shot.
Ready? Who's next? Hey, Scoob, where are you? Ready?
Amazing.
Yeah, I can't believe that it's the same person doing this. It's unbelievable.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
You mentioned him. You said he's one of your favorites. Let's hear some Stone Cold Steve Austin.
All right. The bottom line is, Jay Sensation, you're a piece of trash. You want to make fun of me? You want to make mock of me? You want to go on Mick Foley's show and do my imitation? Jason Sensation does imitation. You want to dress up like Stone Cold? You don't look like Stone Cold Steve Austin. You don't sound like Stone Cold Steve Austin. And you definitely can't stomp a mud hole into somebody's ass like Stone Cold Steve Austin can, you little mealy-mouthed piece of trash. You better keep your damn mouth shut before Stone Cold Steve Austin stuns it shut. Stuns your jaw broken, damn it. And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so. And I got my wife beater on. Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Wow. Well, how about just two more, Jonathan, and I think we'll stop with the impersonation, because we could probably do this all night, Jason. We're having a lot of fun with this. This is great.
Oh, thanks, guys. Me too. It's always a pleasure. You don't use it, you lose it.
That's it. Just two more, and I think, I don't know, we'll have to have another show with you. We're just doing impersonations, but how about the right now Triple H? Can you do Triple H?
I am Triple H, and I am that damn good. Maybe this sounds more like an old school Triple H, because I more read about the show these days than watch the show. But hell, Hunter, if you can hear me, are you ready? I said, are you ready to bring me back? Come on.
I'm pretty sure that this is going to be probably one of our best shows that we've ever had, and somebody that I really think that a lot of people try to impersonate, but if anybody can do a right impersonation, it's somebody that we lost a couple of years back, and that would be Paul Bear.
Oh, I love Paul Bear. He was such a good friend to me. And he stayed in touch with me all the way. Like, he always kept in touch with me. He was a really, really wonderful man. I love him. And if I could even do a quick shout out to his son, Daniel, I hope he's doing well. Blessings to Daniel. Daniel's a soul survivor, man, and God bless him.
Yeah.
And so, okay, yeah, sure. I'd love to do an impression of Paul Bear. Oh, yes, Jason. Can you see the Undertaker in the dark side? Oh, yes. I got one thing to say to you, Jason. 3 words. Oh, yes. Rest in peace. Oh, yes.
Amazing. And last one, Jason. We like I said, we could do this all night, but one last one for our lightning round. Hulk Hogan to finish this off.
All right, let's do Hulk Hogan.
Well, you know something, brother? Hulkamania's been running wild, man. I mean, The Rock likes to take credit for being the biggest star in Hollywood, but I'm the biggest star Hollywood ever saw come out of the wrestling ring, man. And what you gonna do, Rock? And what you gonna do, Governor Ventura, when Hulk Hogan, Hulkamania, and the largest, oldest arms in the world run wild on you, brother?
Wow. Jason, we can't thank you enough for tonight. We really appreciate your time. For everybody listening too right now, where can fans keep up with you? We like to talk about the social media universe. Are you on, Facebook, Twitter? Where can the fans out there right now follow you?
Oh, thanks a lot for that. I appreciate that. I'm on Twitter at Jason Sensation X. I had a previous Twitter account under the same name, and I lost it somehow, and I lost so many followers, and it breaks my heart. And it's not easy to get followers on Twitter, especially when your 15 minutes of fame was 15 years ago. But I'm back on Twitter on the same account at Jason Sensation X. Please follow, and I will reply to any tweets, questions. I always reply. Unlike Jesse Ventura, that I tweeted the other day and he still hasn't replied. I asked him, Governor Ventura, why, when I was watching your show about reptilians, you didn't talk about this interview you were forced into with things that you said that weren't human? But I wasn't able to hear his reply. I could only imagine it in my Jason imagination. And I was,
Jason, I'm not going to answer that question. I would only answer it to Vince McMahon, but I'm not going to answer you because I'm Governor Ventura, and my head is shaking at you like a bobblehead right now.
I have
amazing.
I have legitimate goosebumps from all of this. I cannot tell you. I think that what you have is definitely a gift, and you are a part of professional wrestling history, and one that if we have anything to do with it, one that will not be forgotten anytime soon. It's just an amazing thing that you do, Jason.
thank you very much. That really means a lot to me. I really appreciate you having me on the show. Thank you so much, Steve and Jonathan. I'm grateful to be on the show, and thanks for keeping me relevant in the wrestling world.
Once again, thanks to Jason Sensation. What a guest, what a guy. Jonathan, I hope we get more Jason Sensation in the upcoming weeks. Hilarious. I mean, I could listen to him do impersonations of anybody all day long. Hilarious. Thanks so much to Jason Sensation. Jonathan, we're talking a lot about the eras, the attitude eras, the golden age of wrestling, here, there, everywhere of pro wrestling. Everybody, if you're listening out there, please tweet us, Facebook us, all that social media. We want to hear from you. Leave your comments. Hey, we even have a hotline you guys can call at 1-802-297-7672. That's 802-AWP-7672. Leave us a message. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you love. Tell us what you hate. Ask Jonathan a question. Tell me how much you love Bret Hart. We'll play it on the air. The best calls will be played on the air, guys. So don't forget, give us a call. Tweet us, Facebook us. If we need to tell you the links again, just head on over to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com. It is 2015, kids. You should know what you're doing out there today, right?
So, Steve, we talked about the Golden Age. We talked about the New Generation. We talked about the Attitude Era. Then it got a little crazy for a while because right at the end of the Attitude Era is when WCW and ECW went out of business and Vince McMahon held a monopoly on professional wrestling. So you got the WCW ECW alliance invasion angle, and then you also got the introduction of the NWO in WWE. Now, I was a huge fan of this quote-unquote era, the 2001 to 2002. I don't think it's the greatest, but I think that these were the times when you got to see some of those dream matches that had been speculated about and talked about for years and years and years. And now with WCW and ECW under the WWE umbrella, you got to see a lot of those. You got to see Goldberg, Rock. You got to see Rock, Hogan. I mean, these were some amazing matches. One could make the argument that this was the best era in wrestling history.
But it wasn't, because there was the gold. No, I'm still sticking with the golden age. But Jonathan, I hear you, man. Perfect points, man, and perfect points to where it was the time of like the dream matches, because WWE and WWF, WWE and WCW.
Get the F out.
I know,
right?
Get the F out. I know. It was their merger, so it's almost like you kind of killed it because now you don't have competition and now it's not fun anymore. But it was fun to especially see these matches finally happen because, as you're watching WCW versus and WWE, Raw, whatever, you're like, wow, I wonder if, Hogan would fight The Rock or whatnot, and we actually got to see some of these matches. Could they have pulled a lot of this off better? Sure, but now it was just, I think it was a good time, but it was also another little bit of a bad time, because now it's like you almost had an overabundance of talent, you know what I mean? To where you have all your competition, kind of, and now it's like, now you have to fit them all onto a 2-hour show. They weren't even doing 3-hour shows back then, so think about that one, you know what I mean? They even have as many shows as they did back then, and they still were able to fit everybody in with all that time that they had, so it was another tricky period, but it was fun, but not in my book the greatest, so...
All right. Well, I'm gonna change your mind by the end of this. I just want you to know that. So, we had that era. Then we moved on, 2002 to 2007. We got Ruthless Aggression. Now, do you remember how this all came about? Do you remember this?
I kind of remember Cena saying Ruthless Aggression. Right?
Yeah, Vince kind of came out and was trying to light a fire under people and say, like, you have to really rip your competition's throat out. You have to do this. You have to do that. You have to be ruthless. You have to show ruthless aggression. This is the time that we saw the rise of Brock Lesnar, the rise of John Cena, Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero. All of these people really came into their own in this era, and you got to see people like Matt Morgan when he was in the WWE, Big Show, Rey Mysterio. Like, this was some really quality wrestling. I look back fondly on this. This was the time that I was graduating high school to when I was in college. So I used to go to Hooters and watch the pay-per-views whenever they showed them there. So it's a very fond time frame, and most of the people that were in that time frame are either still wrestling today or definitely made their mark in that era. So,
and I'm not going to let you get away with this, because I mean, your fondest memory of Hooters is wrestling. Come on, buddy, huh?
Well, I mean, it was one of the fondest memories.
Well, there you go.
I had two other fond memories in Hooters as well. So
there you go. Well, yeah, Jonathan. I mean, they had a lot of stuff, even a lot of things that we didn't really know back then that we know now. Like, Daniel Bryan had a tryout match there. AJ Styles had a little bit of a tryout match. Some guys that we know today, had little matches on, like Velocity and all these other little shows. But yeah, a lot of things were happening. It was definitely a time period where the gears were changing again. It's like, what else can we do to to change this product a little bit? They had the custom belts coming out with Cena, changing the whole title to the spinner, or the U.S. title to the spinner, and all that stuff. It was definitely a different time period, but it's not a time period that I look back and I'm counting on my hand countless things that, did it for me to make this era the greatest. And, I'm still going back to my 80s, buddy. Like you said, I mean, things were changing a little bit. It was getting a little bit aggressive and whatnot. But yeah, the only thing I remember of the attitude, the ruthless, it's not an easy word to say fast, but ruthless aggression was Cena saying ruthless aggression. I mean, not too many things stick out in my mind that I can be like, yeah, this was great.
Au contraire, mon frère. Matt Hardy versus Edge. This is the time when you had Cena versus Edge. You had some amazing rivalries. You had Brock Lesnar defeating Hulk Hogan to become he defeated Rock to become the youngest champion, but then he defeated Hulk Hogan. He defeated Undertaker. I mean, this is an amazing time for wrestling. I'm not going to fight you on this one because it's not what I hold as the greatest era of all time either, but it is probably still better than the 80s. But the era that I see as probably the most stagnant was the 2008 to 2013. And I know there's somebody out there that's champing at the bit to come on here and debate me about this. And feel free, anybody that wants to tell me that the wrestling that we got in 2008 to 2013, the so-called Universe era, we had some good matches. We had some good things happen. But as far as an era on the whole, it was probably what I recognize as one of the worst eras in modern professional wrestling.
Yeah, man. A lot of things. Another point, because it's another point in time where just things were changing, and nothing really stood out. It was kind of almost going back to a hokey '90s, early '90s era, to where we're getting kind of back to some silly gimmicks, maybe. there's no competition now, and now it's just like, what do we do? So we're just gonna go back to our grassroots and kind of recreate what we did back then. And I don't know. I don't think it was really working. A lot of people trying to grab those brass rings, Jonathan, but it was still, it's happening. I'm watching it, but nothing's really standing out to me.
Well, this was the time when we had a bunch of those guest hosts that really didn't mean anything.
That's what I'm saying. They're making it into that variety show that doesn't really need to be a variety show. It just needs to be wrestling, and just give us what we want. We don't need that variety hour. It's not the Gong Show.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I really, at the end of the day, I don't look back too fondly on this. There's a lot of times, there were some great surprises. John Cena returning at the Royal Rumble. There was the Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair retirement match at WrestleMania. Like, there's a lot of these things that stick out to me as great, but not enough to have it stand against some of these other eras. But we are now at the point where I school you on the greatest era in professional wrestling history, 2014 to question mark, brother. The reality era, what we are living in right now, is the closest thing that people who are just now watching or casual fans are going to get to pretty much all of those eras combined. We have some of the best things going right now in the reality era, and I dare you, I triple dog dare you to debate me on this.
You're gonna TDD me?
Oh, I'm gonna. It just happened.
Well, okay. Let me think about it. Okay, so give me one big moment that happened in the now that is bigger than Hogan versus Andre.
Okay, Brock Lesnar breaking the streak.
Okay. Well, give me another thing that's better than Warrior beating Hogan for the heavyweight championship.
How about Sting making his WWE debut?
All right. How about give me something else that's better than Marty Jannetty going through the barbershop window?
Pipe bomb.
Okay. I'm all right. I'm starting to see some defeat here. I get it. I get it. I'm getting it. I'm agreeing with you slightly, but hit me with something else.
Okay. How about Daniel Bryan winning the WWE World Heavyweight Championship? No one ever expected that happening, especially when he was going against Triple H, Randy Orton. They brought Batista back, who was one of the biggest stars in wrestling history, and he overcame all those odds to become champion. That would have never happened in other times, but the fans really started to have more of a say. Whenever he didn't show up at Royal Rumble, they just went bananas. Rey Mysterio got booed out, and Rey Mysterio is a face. More high-profile independent talent are now being brought up to the main roster. We've got the likes of Neville, Kevin Owens, the former Kevin Steen. But if I have to keep going, I'm going to have to go no further than the three letters NXT. NXT is a part of this reality era right now, and it is creating some of the best moments and matches in wrestling history. I know that people are going to argue with me and say, well, it's not really WWE. It's WWE, all right? It's exactly what it is. I mean, I'm just saying, that's the small end of my list. I did some homework on this because I just wanted you to taste defeat. So that's what's happening right now.
Okay. So I see your point. I'll give you this one, Jonathan. I'll give you that right now is better than the 80s. But Jonathan, could you take it? I think it's hard. I think it's hard to place yourself back in the 80s and, you know what I mean? Knowing what we know now, you know what I mean? Like, go to that moment. I'm just saying to go to that moment for a minute of the whole Hogan and Andre moment.
Oh, wait, hold on. We can do that. We can do that because we have the network, which was created in the modern era. right now. The reality era brought you the WWE Network.
All right. He wins, but listen, hear me out one last time. I like I said earlier in the show, I wish I could take myself now and put me back in that moment in the 80s, knowing at my age now, you know what I mean? Being an older fan, being at that moment then, you know, like, I wonder how it would feel seeing that moment as an older fan, compared to, like, what if we were a kid and went through all the now stuff that you just mentioned, like the pipe bomb and this and that, to where, would I appreciate it, or would I get it? You know what I mean? So, my whole argument is that I think it's hard to take you out of the time period and really go against each other. But I will lay down in defeat and say that your
the
points,
first of many.
Don't get cocky over there. I'll cut your mic, kiddo. Huh? I didn't really cut his mic, but you know what I mean. But
you tried.
But I mean, do I kind of have a point to where it's almost kind of hard to relive that moment as we know pro wrestling, you know, back then, to like, was that moment really big? Like the moments that we're witnessing now are really big, you know, was like the birth of Raw almost like witnessing the birth of NXT now, you know what I mean? To where, I don't know.
I think that you've got some valid points. But I think that one of the things you have to realize is, like we mentioned earlier, that wrestling's always evolving, but for whatever reason, people around our age, you know, I'm 31 years old, I think that is kind of, wrestling has evolved with us. So, you know, in the 80s, it was kind of cartoony because that was what was big. In the 90s, it started to get more, you know, kind of grungy, edgier, like your, you know, Seattle music scene. Nirvana was on the scene. You know, then the 2000, it was more kind of starting to get your more reality based because you had a lot of reality television. That's when we saw the birth of Tough Enough and those sorts of things. And, you know, into now when we're talking about the reality era, kayfabe is dead. That's what really kind of brought upon this, because CM Punk's contractual, all of his disputes were right out there in the open. Yeah. And so I think that the fans kind of dictated throughout the years what they want. And as much as people want to hate on this era now, you know, we've got the likes of Cesaro, the Wyatts, the Shield, the Usos, Bad News Barrett. You know, we've got wrestling on every day, Total Divas, Tough Enough, the WWE Network, Seth Rollins is your champion, and women's wrestling has never been better in the WWE. So I think that right now it has it all. Do I think that the 80s is an important era? And, you know, to use your point about, you know, these moments, yes, I absolutely think so. And if you have to have the past to have the future. So I totally see why you would like the 80s as an era, but I am going to say that this is the era, the greatest era. And I will debate anyone. I hope that we get a Twitter battle. I hope that someone says something on Facebook. I'm calling you all out. Anybody who's listening today that has any way, shape, or form to think that they can defeat me in this debate, bring it, as The Rock said. I'm lifting my eyebrow right now.
He said it, ladies and gentlemen. If you think you can go one-on-one with
the great one,
hit us up. AnotherWrestlingPodcast.com, Jonathan. All of our links. You'll know where to find us on social media. Just Google us, huh? Google it, kids. You'll figure it out sooner or later.
Do you want to know something though, Steve? Real quick.
Sure.
They will have a chance to debate us live and in person. We have two great opportunities to come and see us coming up. Do you want to tell them about any of those?
Sure, Jonathan. Hey guys, in 1 week's time, we will have the Chico Man, Tito Santana, live and in person at Tito Santana's Taqueria, July 18th from 12 to 2 p.m. in Beacon, New York. Guys, when can you say you met Tito Santana at Tito Santana's Taqueria while eating a taco? Guys, Taqueria. Come meet him, greet him, eat a taco, talk to us, debate Jonathan. Tell me how much you love Bret Hart. You know, it's all going to go down, guys. For more information, head on over to tacosantana.com. You can find the address. Go to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com. All the info's on there. How many times, Jonathan, could one say that they met Tito Santana at Tito Santana's Taqueria? Never. This is the first time.
This is the first time. This is just yet another reason to keep up with Another Wrestling Podcast. We're going to do big things. We did tons of big things in year 1. Year 2, it started off with a bang. And if you don't get to see us at Tito Santana's Taqueria, I urge you all to come out August 1st, Dutchess County Stadium in Dutchess County, New York. We will be live at Wrestling Under the Stars, a Northeast Wrestling production. We will be bringing in none other than the genius Lanny Poffo. Now, he had mentioned, if he can remember, he's going to be bringing his brother's Hall of Fame ring, the Macho Man's ring, as well. So, in 2 weeks, or in 2 different instances with us, you're going to get to eat a taco with Tito Santana and see Macho Man's Hall of Fame ring. Can you think of anything better than that?
I don't know. I just hope it fits my hand. I'm putting it on. I don't know about you.
No, it's going to happen. I'm definitely going to put it on. I'm going to put on my best Macho Man outfit, probably do a little finger sweep in the air, and put on a nice little Macho Man impersonation.
There you go, guys. A lot of great things happening. This is year 2. What kind of era are we in, Jonathan? Could we name this era?
We are in the era of awesomeness right now. Is what's happening.
I love it.
And that's gonna. Let's see here. That's circa 2014 to forever.
There you go, guys. Jonathan, what a show, what a day. Thanks to Jason Sensation. A lot of shows, great guests coming up, guys. Don't miss it. If you want to find out more, we're not going to tell you right now. You got to head on over to all of our sites. We're going to leak some guests of who's going to be on our show on our Twitter, on Instagram, on our Facebook page. So tune into that, guys, if you want to know who's going to be next, right?
Absolutely. And we urge you to go on, like our stuff, comment, subscribe. This is a podcast for you, the fans. We love doing this, but we want your input. We really do. So anytime that you feel the need, tweet us. Let us know what we're doing right. Let us know what Steve's doing wrong. And we'll just keep getting better, because that's what we want.
Well, that's the show. We want to thank each and every one of you out there for listening today.
That's right, Steve. Every week we create something for you to listen to, and it's absolutely free.
If you are wondering out there how you could repay us, well, we just have one thing.
Subscribe to us on iTunes.
While you're over there, be sure to rate us and give us a good review.
Hey, if you're looking for more information about AWP, then head on over to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com.
Hey, we're all over social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and more. Just Google it.
And if you're an AWP super fan, you could also show your support by going over to ProWrestlingTees.com and buying one of our official AWP shirts. We're going to be adding new designs all the time.
We couldn't do the show without any one of you, so be sure to tune in next week.
Another Wrestling Podcast.